Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of And Yet We Believe. I am Roger Pimentel.
My name is Anne.
And we are a married couple having honest conversations about the beautiful, messy middle of Latter-day Saint life. What are we talking about today?
So today we are talking about Father's Day. When we're recording this, Father's Day is on Sunday. And we had a really good Mother's Day episode last month. And so we want to continue the conversation with a Father's Day episode.
So this is kind of part 2.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Okay. So it occurs to me, as we were preparing for this episode, it was occurring to me that Father's Day feels different from Mother's Day at church.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I do.
I feel like Mother's Day feels like a minefield. Like I feel like there's 1,000 ways to get Mother's Day wrong. Lots of consternation about how Mother's Day is observed. And we had kind of polled our Instagram audience, and we got a lot of comments about Mother's Day and many ways about how it had been done poorly in people's wards.
Well, and I wonder if the reason for that is that it is celebrated more fully than Father's Day.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like Father's Day is often just a afterthought, or like the men aren't going to care that much, so let's just throw a cookie at them on their way out the door and they're fine, But
Right.
With Mother's Day, they try to do this above and beyond. We got to make women feel good, and maybe that speaks to more how women are treated in the church, and men are, made, like the church is made for men. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, because we had a conversation and it came up of like, oh, how is this usually, how's Father's Day usually observed at church or in the wards we've been in? And I was absolutely drawing a blank. I was like, I actually don't know how it's usually observed. Because either it wasn't observed, which I think it probably was, or it wasn't memorable, or like I just have never cared that much, but I couldn't really think of all the ways it had been observed.
I know. I could probably name 5 to 10 gifts that I've received for Mother's Day over the years. Could you name any?
I can name one.
Because we did it. Could you name that one too then?
Were we in charge of a Father's Day gift? I don't remember.
When we made muffins for all the men in the ward.
Okay. I remember that now.
Yeah.
So can I tell the story of
Sure.
the one that had actually come to mind? So this was actually in my parents' ward, and we were visiting, and it was on Father's Day, and some sisters from the ward came in at like the end of Elders Quorum with a bunch of cans of soda and vanilla ice cream to make like floats, like root beer floats, but different kinds of soda. And it kind of had this vibe of like, make a float or don't, I don't care. Here's some stuff. And then they had like Coke and Dr. Pepper. They had caffeinated sodas. And somebody made a comment about it.
Oh.
And like, oh yeah, you're supposed to have, sodas with caffeine. And the sister who brought the stuff in was like, hey, if they can sell it at BYU, it's good enough for us. And I just thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
I kind of, the vibes were immaculate. So that was the only one I could think of, was these soda floats in my parents' ward.
Yeah. I feel like one time you got jerky.
Okay.
That could be.
That very well could be.
Yeah.
I do not remember.
Yeah. So typically, I mean, if we think of Mother's Day, I think a lot of this stuff is probably somewhat similar, where maybe they say, if all the fathers will stand, or I don't know if they've even gone as far to say, will all the men over 18 please stand?
Probably.
It seems, I don't know, that seems weird to do, because I don't know that I've ever seen it done.
Yeah.
But yes, I've been in many wards where I've had to stand as a mother and as before I was a mother,
right,
where I've had to stand to receive my gift. It's so weird. Overall, though, interestingly, in our data that we did with the Mother's Day episode, most women said that they did not want Mother's Day celebrated at church.
It was 65% said they don't like celebrating Mother's Day at church. So only 35% were in favor of it.
And in the polls that we did for Father's Day, it largely came back about 50-50.
Yeah, 50% said, yes, we should celebrate Father's Day at church. The other 50% said, no, we shouldn't, which I think is still pretty damning as far as the numbers go. If 50% are saying don't celebrate it at church, and that was the better one, that was better than Mother's Day, that is not a very good sign.
Yeah. And when we asked about if men wanted gifts or appreciated getting gifts or food or something for Father's Day, most people said yes.
Not all.
Yeah, there was a handful that said it really depends on what it is.
Yeah, and some that said no.
Yeah.
But one thing that was consistent across when we asked about Mother's Day and when we asked about Father's Day was when we talked about sacrament meeting. And when we asked about the talks. And for Mother's Day, people said, we should not have talks about mothers and how great somebody's mother is.
Pedestalize women.
Right. Overwhelmingly, the comments that we got on Instagram said the talk should be about Christ. Like they should be about religion, you know, the gospel. And when we asked about Father's Day, exact same thing. Yeah. Don't have talks about fathers, have talks about, have Christ-centered talks, essentially.
And there were some comments that said if we are going to have talks about fathers, then have it be about fatherhood and not about the priesthood.
Right.
And we'll get into that more in this episode, but that is a real problem in the church where fatherhood is just folded into priesthood, and really fatherhood is not mentioned that much because priesthood is mentioned as the role or duty of the man.
Right.
And we know the harm that comes when motherhood is equated with priesthood. Men have the priesthood and women have motherhood. Those are not the same thing.
Right.
And never should be talked about as the same thing.
Yeah. So let's talk about the talks. So Mother's Day talks do tend to have this pedestalizing. You get somebody talking about their angel mother, and gushing with how loving and how much their mother sacrificed and all of these things.
And like our word this year, how much she cleaned the house.
That was weird.
Oh dear.
pretty rough. But when you do get Father's Day talks or Father's talks, they tend to not be the same thing.
Because they talk about the duties. They talk about the priesthood part of it more.
Talk about responsibilities and roles and these sorts of things. And I have a hypothesis on why this is.
Okay.
And I think there's a generation issue here.
Okay.
So there's a lot of data about millennial dads, like me. Millennial dad, right here. And the number that gets kicked around the most says that millennial dads spend 3 times more time with their kids than previous generations, than dads did in previous generations. So millennial dads are more engaged, they're more at home, they're participating in the household, they're nurturing and caring for their children. I have one other statistic actually. It said the percentage of dads who have never changed a diaper is now at 3%.
Wow.
Down from 43% in 1982.
Wow.
Almost half in 1982. We were born in 83. So that's, there's the benchmark for you there. But dads now are different than dads 20, 30, 40 years ago and beyond. So I think we've had decades of people not telling gushing stories about their loving dad because they didn't have those stories to tell.
Right. Yeah. Richard Rohr talks about this. He calls this the father wound, where a lot of men, if they don't have a father figure, and he's not even talking necessarily about just a father in the home, but a father figure, but he does mention fathers in the home. If boys don't have this father figure in the home or in their lives, then they don't have any acceptance or approval from that person. And so they spend the rest of their life seeking that approval from other places, whether that's wealth or power or whatever. And he talks about how, like, the mother, a child is connected physically to a mother. And so when they are growing, that's an easy love to have. And it's hard when a mother dies or leaves because that's an initial bond that they had.
Right.
But the love of a father is the first person that they're not physically connected to that will love them. And so that wound, if that doesn't happen, that approval doesn't happen, that wound is deep.
Yeah.
And it has long-lasting harm to that person as they grow.
Yeah.
If they're seeking it in other ways.
That's fascinating.
And so I think with what you're saying about these millennial dads, I wonder if we are kind of on this precipice of healing this father wound that society has had for so long, because dads are more engaged with their children now.
I hope so. And I can give an example of this. So a number of years ago, I went to an LDS MBA conference.
Mm-hmm.
So this was either, business school students or graduates. I'd been working in my career for a number of years at this point. And there were all these amazing speakers, really successful people. Steve Young was one of them. Clark Gilbert was one of them. But multiple speakers at this event all kind of fell into this old mold of really romanticizing their career. And several of them told stories where it was like, oh yeah, I'd be at work all day, and then I'd go see my wife and kids for dinner, and then go back to work and, put in some more hours at the office. And that's how I climbed the corporate ladder or whatever. And I was like, man, this stinks.
Yeah.
Like, this is garbage. And it like really did not resonate with, and they were so proud of these things that they had accomplished. And I was like, yeah, leaving your family at home for your career doesn't feel like being a dad to me. Like that's not what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's why when we go to church and we hear these talks, I don't really even have any recollection of a single talk I've heard about dads, about fathers. But what I do hear is the talks about the priesthood.
Right.
And that is the dad's duty and role. And so that it's kind of the same thing where it's like, this is my role, this is my job. I'm putting so much effort into the job, to this role, to my calling, to, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the kids are just kind of left behind.
They're just extra at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I would really love to hear talks that are actually focused on what fathers do, what the role of a father is outside of any priesthood duty. Because, like, yes, fathers give fathers blessings, right? That's maybe the most direct way that priesthood can bless a family, is through a blessing, an actual blessing.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Outside of that, what else do dads do for their kids, right? And why don't we talk about that at church?
Well, and I love, there's a distinction in the terms here, and you just did it, which is, we say father when we're talking about like, fatherly duties are to provide for their family and blah, blah, blah. But a dad?
Yeah.
Like, a dad is supposed to be home playing with their kids.
Yeah.
Playing catch or, whatever it is that dads do, showing up and being present in these sorts of things. And that's what you're talking about. That's what doesn't get covered in the talks.
Yeah. I don't think that men are encouraged to be dads.
Yeah.
They're encouraged to be the provider and protector.
The father.
Right. But yeah, being a dad is so much more. And it's not just the playing catch is important, that sort of thing. But I think being emotionally present for the children is hugely important. And that gives a lasting impact to kids, to see their dad as an emotionally present person.
Well, and we can go back to this difference between men and women, between mothers and fathers, because we talk about motherhood all the time as this divine role. Mm-hmm. Like, this is something that women are, not just something that they do. But we don't talk about that with fatherhood. We don't be like, yes, this is this divine role that men have. Instead, again, like you said earlier, we're talking about duties. Mm-hmm. We're talking about responsibilities. And the number one duty that I've heard about, all growing up through young men and all these things, is providing for your family.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's a good thing.
Important.
Somebody's got to do it.
Well, but that also speaks to the generational shift that we're having, where most people can't survive anymore without a double income household, right? With both parents needing to work. And so to talk about this, like, you have to provide for your family, that talk has to be given to the women as well now if they are wanting to survive in a home, right? And I want to just step back really fast to one thing you said about how women, we always hear that women's highest role is motherhood, right? I had never heard it about men. I found one time in 2016, Elder Christofferson gave a talk called Fathers. And he said, I'm giving this talk about fathers, and the good that men can do in the highest of masculine roles is husband and father. I have never heard the highest masculine role is husband and father.
That's pretty good.
It's fascinating to me that it took 43 years of life to hear fatherhood talked about that way, in the same way that women are talked about with motherhood.
Now, here's the bad news. I was also trying to find a quote real quickly in my notes. It's from the same talk as that one, because there aren't talks about fathers.
Right. And I have a number of other talks quotes from that talk
from the same talk. So there's one talk from Elder Christofferson in 2016 that's about being a father. That's pretty much all there is to go off of, at least in recent General Conference history. And I was kind of going the other way with it, which, I mean, we're talking about providing for your family, and most of this talk is good. Some of it falls into these old tropes. But this part was wild to me. He says, we recognize the agony of men who are unable to find ways and means adequately to sustain their families. There is no shame for those who, at a given moment, despite their efforts, cannot fulfill all the duties and functions of fathers. This is a really dramatic painting of, like, being unable to provide for your family. And I was really kind of struck by just how dramatic that is.
But I do think the way that the church and society has set up that role for men, like, that's all you're good for, is to provide for your family, that for a lot of men, if they can't do that, it is like they are a complete and utter failure.
There would certainly be shame involved with that.
Yeah, it would be really hard. I mean, we can't discount that agony that they might feel for not being able to do that. But I think that putting all of the worth of a man into that role of providing, that's where the shame and damage comes. Because men are so much more than just providers.
And I think this is where some of that generational shift comes in. I've been lucky enough, my career has gone largely pretty well. But again, that isn't being a dad to me. Being at work isn't being a dad. That's what gets in the way of me being a dad. Especially right now, it's summer, the kids are home during the day, and I'm gone working, and it's like, oh, well, I'd rather be home doing what you guys are doing.
We get to do all of the fun things, go swimming and different things, and you're at work.
Exactly.
That talk from Elder Christofferson, he talks about providing for your family and being at work, and he says, this was shocking to me, providing for one's family, although it generally requires time away from the family, is not inconsistent with fatherhood. It is the essence of being a good father.
Whoa.
So it's like exactly opposite of what you just said, that's not what being a dad is to you, going to work every day. He says that is the essence of fatherhood, is going to work every day. That is just sad to me.
I can't even register that.
Yeah, that men have, like, that's all you have to look forward to, is to go to work every day.
Right.
And that's it.
That's being a dad.
Yeah, that's fatherhood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Goodness.
He does follow it up, just to his credit, for saying that, this of course does not justify a man who neglects his family for his career.
There we go. Okay.
So, he's not saying ignore your family and just go to work, but he's saying, like, that's your priority, is to go to work.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah. Okay. The Family Proclamation says the same thing. That the father's primary responsibility is to provide for the family and protect their family. I've never been quite sure what the protect part actually means, but that's in there too.
Yeah. So, okay, this is also interesting to me because in the proclamation, it says that a mother's job is to nurture.
Yes.
Men provide and protect, and the women are supposed to nurture.
Right.
I've always thought that that means that I have to teach my children, that I'm in charge of teaching the gospel, that it's my role and responsibility to set the tone, as the talk said, that we set the tone in the home, and everything lays on my shoulders for getting my kids to heaven. Is that something that you
Wow.
have heard or felt at all, that it's a woman's job to do that?
No, not in those terms.
Okay.
I mean, I can see how you would get there.
Yeah. This is something that I have always felt and heard about.
Wow.
But
I feel like that's a weight off of my shoulders. Right.
Hold on, there's more.
Oh, dang.
In this talk from Elder Christofferson, he brings out Doctrine and Covenants 93:42.
Okay.
So section 93, verse 42, where the Lord is calling somebody out. I didn't look up who it was, but one of the it was one of the first presidency members of the church at the time.
Yep.
And saying, like, you haven't taught your kids about the gospel, and Satan has a hold on you because that is your job. And so he brings up, he has this whole thing about how it is the father's responsibility to teach kids about the gospel, which to me, reading that, I was like, oh, wait, what? I thought that was part of nurturing.
Right.
I thought that's what nurturing meant. Wasn't just, wiping the boo-boo and putting a Band-Aid on it. That's nurturing, but also teaching the children. I always felt a huge responsibility to do that. He says, and this is so much. There's so much here. He says, certainly teaching the gospel is a shared duty between fathers and mothers, but the Lord is clear that he expects fathers to lead out in making it a high priority. And then he has parentheses, and he says, and let's remember that informal conversations, working and playing together, and listening are important elements of teaching. Close parentheses. The Lord expects fathers to help shape their children.
Okay.
And children want and need a model. What do you think about this?
Okay. So first of all, I get itchy anytime we are assigning a role to one gender.
Yeah. Because my understanding is parents are co-equals.
Right.
Co-parents, doing it together side by side, following the example of our heavenly parents.
Right. And if you remember, when we did an episode on the family proclamation, it kind of almost contradicts itself, because it's talking about fathers are responsible for providing and protection, and mothers are responsible for nurturing. And then it says, and I quote, in these sacred responsibilities, fathers and mothers are obligated to help one another as equal partners. So like it kind of backtracks off of those things. And that sentence is way, way better and makes a ton of sense.
Right.
And if it said like, mothers and fathers are responsible together for teaching their children, and sometimes there's not a mother, and sometimes there's not a father, and sometimes families look different, and that's okay too, but, we're all in this together. Like, if it said something like that, that would make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like, he's very clear that the Lord is clear that fathers are supposed to lead out and make it a priority to teach the gospel. And then there's this aside of like, and also have conversations and play and work together. That's how we teach. That's important. But be a model.
It feels preside coded to me.
Yeah.
Like, well, as the presiding priesthood holder of your family, it's your responsibility to teach your children. And it's like, well,
again, that's getting into the duties of priesthood and not fatherhood.
Right.
Separate out priesthood and fatherhood, please. Like, I just can't, I don't want those to be the same thing, because the way that we talk about priesthood is so stuck in administrative work. Having callings and, running things and giving blessings. And so much of that seems administrative, but yet somehow the women have it, but we don't get to do those things. And it just is so muddy
Yep.
There needs to be explicit, like, these are separate things, or God's power, which is what the priesthood is,
Right.
bleeds into all of this, and men and women get to do it all alike.
Yep. Okay.
Mic drop.
Yep.
Just
moment of silence for that one. So let's talk about good examples of fathers from the scriptures, and I think we each have one. So
Yes.
do you want to kick us off on that?
Sure. So we were just on vacation, and we were in a cathedral and looking in one of the little side chapels, and it was a whole chapel that was dedicated to Joseph of Nazareth, the father of Jesus. And it had this beautiful mosaic picture of Jesus and Mary and Joseph and Mary and baby Jesus. And then it had a triptych of Joseph teaching the carpentry job. It was beautiful. And I had never seen a chapel dedicated to Joseph in all the cathedrals we've gone to. And so there was a little plaque outside the room that talked about how Joseph was not the birth father, right,
Sure.
of Jesus, not a biological father, and that he was chosen to be the father of Jesus,
Right.
And it obviously we know this, right? This is not a secret.
Yeah.
But
it's not a big reveal,
right? No spoiler here. But I love that there is a non-ideal family at the very core of the gospel. American white ideal traditional family.
Right.
With two birth parents having their child together,
right.
Whatever.
What's been painted as this ideal.
Yes. There are many ways to have a family, and I think it's beautiful that Joseph was trusted to be the father of the Son of God.
Yeah.
He was put into an extremely hard and challenging situation, especially at the time. He had every right to leave Mary.
Right.
Because he could have, he probably thought, or people would think, that there was infidelity before the marriage. And I wouldn't be surprised if the law said that he could stone her,
Oh, interesting.
He could have not just left her, but ended her for that.
Goodness sakes.
And he didn't. And he stepped into a role that is just beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful.
There's a comment in the chat about Joseph. Shout out to step parents.
Totally.
Love that.
Yeah.
Because, he stepped in and parented a child that was not biologically his.
Yeah. And why don't we talk about this more, especially at Father's Day?
Sure. Yeah.
How many families sitting in a ward are going to be in that same situation or come from that situation or whatever? It is probably a pretty big number.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we tend to talk about this one setup of a family, and I think that does us a huge disservice as a church to just focus on one type of family.
Yep.
So that's the example that I love from the church, or from the scriptures.
Okay.
So what do you have?
Mine is the father in the parable of the prodigal son.
Love it.
And we've talked about this parable multiple times, and we're going to talk about it 1,000 more times because I love this parable. I love the richness and the depth in it. So let's talk about the father in it. Now, remember, this is Jesus telling this story. This is what Jesus painted as a father.
Yeah, this was his example of a good father.
Right. So, okay, if we kind of rewind in the story, the son demands his inheritance early, which is basically like I wish you were dead.
Yeah, disgracing the father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of just want to pretend that you are dead already, and I'm going to take your money and leave.
Yeah, big slap in the face.
Right. And the father just does it, just rolls with it. And then when the son returns in disgrace, the wording in the verse says that the father sees him a great way off, which suggests that he's watching for him. He's looking for him. He's expecting him to come back. And he doesn't wait for the son to get there. It says that he runs
Yeah.
to him.
I actually read a thing that said he would have had to lift up his tunic to run better and show his legs, and that was even a disgrace to show your legs. So he was taking himself notches down to run to the son who was kind of at the bottom already.
Yep. Literally running to him. And it's about time the episode to bring up Elder Kieran. When he talks about God is in relentless pursuit of you, that's that same kind of imagery. And he really does not really let the son apologize. He is just so glad to have him back. And then, of course, throws this party and all of these things. And so the forgiveness that's implied in that, the love and the nurturing that are implied in that story. I love this picture of a father who loves his son so much. He doesn't care that he was disgraced and insulted. That's all behind him. He's just glad to have his son back.
Yeah. Yeah, these are two examples of men in the scriptures that are put into really hard situations.
Yeah.
And lead with love, right? They do everything they can to make sure that their kids feel loved.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate, to me, that is the ultimate purpose of a parent, a mother or a father, is to share that love and to make sure that kids never feel shame for anything that they've done, but just to lead with love. And that's the type of talk I would want to hear on Father's Day or Mother's Day. Like, those are both such good parenting examples. And I mean, yes, let's focus on Jesus, of course.
If you have to have
if you have to talk about parenthood, though, then talk about like parents that love their kids regardless of the screw ups that happen, because they're gonna happen.
Yep.
Yeah. So Father's Day is as hard as Mother's Day is for a lot of women. We think that Father's Day just kind of gets this pass because we don't have this kind of hubbub around Father's Day in the same way that we do with Mother's Day. But Father's Day is still hard for a lot of men.
Yep.
There are men who want to be fathers and aren't. We know men that just don't go to church on Father's Day because it's too difficult. There's a lot of grief. Either your dad has passed away like me, or you have a hard relationship with a father like you. No, I'm just kidding. No. But there are people that have complicated relationships with fathers. Maybe the father wasn't in their home, or
out of the picture.
Yeah, or was in the picture and was abusive, or there's so many things. And we want to just honor all the ways that people are showing up to church in relationship with their fathers, and realize that pedestalizing or putting fathers as the focus is going to be hard for people. There are people who are in same-sex relationships, maybe have two dads, and you show up to a church that won't acknowledge that or anything, and that brings a lot of heartache. Or a gay couple that wants to be fathers and they can't.
Sure.
There's all the things are part of our church life, and ignoring them, ignoring those tender-hearted people and places that people are in only causes damage, I think.
Yep. So let me bring up also another kind of difficult angle here, and this is the weight that fathers carry. And we've talked about these great examples of loving fathers and that sort of thing. But really what gets talked about is the father as the patriarch, as the provider, as the priesthood holder, as the presiding, leader of the family, sort of a thing. And these expectations stack up. And when we hear about fathers, we hear about responsibilities. We've talked about this. And it ends up being a checklist sort of thing. Mm-hmm. What fathers never hear is, you are doing enough.
Yeah.
Because the lesson is always, hey, you need to do more. And these stereotypes of dads that are, buffoons and they're just like watching sports all the time and like, oh yeah, got to get off the couch and all of these things. And for one, that's kind of offensive. I was in Elders Quorum some months ago, and whoever was up there teaching, had the chalkboard and said, all right, let's make a list. What are some things you can do this week to strengthen your family? And I was like, dude, you think I'm not trying to strengthen my family already? Like, what do you think I'm doing all the time? But this is always the tone is you need to do more. You need to be doing more than you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it just feeds into, like you're saying, these stereotypes that we have in the church and in society, and maybe less so in the church. I don't think it's very prevalent for church members, men, to be talked about as these kind of bumbling idiots that don't know. Like, there are parts of like, oh, you don't know how to do XYZ or, whatever. But that is largely a social stereotype of fathers. And actually, Elder Christofferson talked about that in his talk. And he said, we call on media and entertainment outlets to portray devoted and capable fathers who truly love their wives and intelligently guide their children, instead of the bumblers and buffoons or the, quote, guys who cause problems, unquote, as fathers are all too frequently depicted.
Yeah.
So yes, men always hear do better, do better, do better. But I think a lot of that is led by media saying you're all idiots and you can't do anything without being handheld by your wife.
It's the Homer Simpsonification of dads. And now that becomes like, oh, we can't pass around the meal sign up in Elders Quorum because none of us know what we're doing. Like
men can't cook.
All these kind of dorky things around that. Funny enough, I went looking for this message to fathers, like you're doing enough, feel good about the effort that you're putting in. And the only thing I found was Elder Holland talking to mothers. And he said, believe in God and yourself. You are doing better than you think you are. That message to fathers, at least to me, I mean, sample size of one, that would be so meaningful for me to hear instead of like, well, I assume you're not trying to strengthen your family, so let's brainstorm a list of ways to do that.
Yeah. We have a lot of work to do in how we talk to and about fathers and fatherhood.
Yeah.
Namely, we need to do it.
Let's start with talking about
There's one talk on fathers, explicitly on fathers. There's many that probably mention fathers or fatherhood, or a lot of the talks that I came across were talking about the fatherhood of God. Which, like, that's its own thing completely. There are not many talks about fathers, and we need to do better to kind of lean into what these millennial dads now are trying to do in strengthening their families by actually being present.
Right.
We're leaving behind the Mad Men, the Leave It to Beaver type man, thank goodness, and stepping into these more present and involved fathers and mothers. There's plenty of history with women checking out with mommy's little helper pill, So anyway, there's so much more that we could do to make fathers feel more involved, feel more appreciated, and like part of the family home gospel life.
Being not just a father, but a dad.
Right. There you go.
Okay. Should we end it right there?
Yep, that sounds good. Thanks for joining us tonight.
As always, you can find us on Instagram. I'm at From the Overflow.
And I'm at The Vision Beautiful.
And we will see you next time.
Bye.